All right, welcome back, folks. Today is May 2nd, 2025. Let's jump straight into the review. So, starting off from yesterday and Asia time, as we can see, after the opening at 1800, which is right here, price pushed down lower. We had this reversal here on this peak, which, by the way, if we go back to an earlier review, I expected this 4 standard deviations to be delivered because it was an hourly sweep into a 50-minute breaker. And of course, that's just what we did. 4 standard deviations, literally 4 standard deviations to the peak. I honestly didn't notice this yesterday when I did the review, so that's why I didn't mention it. But after we reach 4 standard deviations, we then pull back. The typical area we're going to pull back to, it's 2.5. It can go lower than that, but 2.5 is the sweet spot area. And basically in this area, what you want to do is you want to draw a fib or a box or something to remind yourself, because at that point is when we can start looking for another continuation up higher for an even higher time frame projection. So this is a 15-minute projection here, but then we can look for an hourly projection or a 4-hour projection and so on to then start delivering to the upside. This busy is also valid per model on the 4-hour right here. So we have the CISD, high, low, high, sweepable, swept, busy on the 4-hour, giving us this area. I talked about this busy yesterday on the live stream. And on that busy, we're looking for a 15-minute breaker to the upside. I haven't talked about that on the 4-hour model. That's something I'll be teaching later on. But yeah, we're looking for a 15-minute breaker. So once this 15-minute breaker is here, it's valid to be a target. That's why I have the notifications on that. We'll likely deliver that Monday or Tuesday next week, probably Monday. So the bias is long once we did the retracement on the 2.5. And let's go back to the 15-minute. Oops. All right. Go back to the 15-minute. So from the 15-minute perspective, here is the CISD we had gotten on Wednesday, right? And it was a straight shot. This is the very first sweepable that we had gotten as well on Wednesday. So if you drag that out, look how conveniently we come and we sweep that for the very first time inside of, again, the 4-hour busy, inside of the 2.5 retracement. So everything is lining up so that you can go ahead and take an entry out of this area. So it's just something to take a note of. The other thing is, again, from this CISD, what also is here? High, low, high. That's the very first sweepable as well on the 15-minute. Okay. Go to the 1 minute in this area. If you were trading on this day, you would have gotten the sweep, but there was no breaker here. So because there's no breaker in this section, there's no entry. So this is not only a 5-minute entry, this is also a 15-minute entry all at once. So once we run that low, we're looking for the first breaker to the upside, which in this case was this breaker. Okay. And of course, it delivers 4 standard deviations. Plus, let's go on the 5-minute real quick. Remember, it's a 5-minute sweep as well. So candle 1 on the 5-minute sweep is also valid. Let's say you were not here for the original breaker. You could have gotten a reentry on candle 1. Limit goes on the candle 1. Stop goes on the bottom of it. And then targets go to the standard deviations of the breaker. The either 5-minute or the 1 minute is depending on what the narrative is. In this case, we know the narrative is potentially we can get a 15-minute bullish breaker, which will go again to 2 or 4 standard deviations. So you got a lot of room to work with. You basically could have targeted this high. That's 14R. That obviously you would have had to held it overnight. But yeah, it's a very realistic target. You could have also just done 4 standard deviations of the 5-minute breaker, which is here, or 4 standard deviations of the 5-minute breaker here from the new formation. So either one would have been fine. But yeah, for the bread and butter stuff, let's just stick to the 1 minute because I know most of you guys watching this are obviously just starting off with the model. Yeah, that's the first entry there. We then, of course, get a sweepable here as well on the 5-minute. Going here. The CISD is here, right? After the CISD, we have high, low, high, giving us our first sweepable. So we'll do sweepable 5-minute. I'll do 1 minute real quick in the same area. And is there a breaker here on the sweep? No. Is there a breaker here? Yes, right here. And that breaker is also a 5-minute breaker at the same time. Inside candle, minus 1 point. IFG, plus 1 point. Fair value gap, plus 1 point. Close on the first time, minus 1 point. So this would be a B plus. Now, the context is it's riding off the back of this right here, right? And it's also riding off the fact that this is a 4-hour, potentially becoming a 15-minute breaker. So on this specific B plus, I definitely would be targeting 4 standard deviations personally. Now, after we get to 4 standard deviations, what ends up happening is we get to 4, 4.5, and what do you know? Once we get to 4, 4.5, we start pulling back. Okay. Now, where do we pull back into? It's not just some random place. 2, 2.5, of course, right? But like I said, it can dig a little bit further until it finds the sweepable that it's seeking. Out of this leg, CI is this here or here or here, it doesn't matter. The very first sweepable on the 5-minute is here, which is high, low, and then a high, giving us this as the sweepable. If we drag that onto the right, that's literally where price continue from. We'll go over price action here in just a second, but I want to emphasize that the very first sweepable on the 5-minute time frame is going to be a very, very high likely area of getting retapped, unless there is other things that are making us believe that it's going to continue without having to work itself back there. But if standard deviations get met and we're pulling back, we're very likely going to pull back into the very first sweepable on that 5-minute time frame. If the sweepable was a 50-minute time frame, for example, we also very likely will pull back there. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot take any trades above that. You just need to be aware that if you do, you cannot be surprised by the fact that you got taken out. Also, don't rush into the very next trade so easily. Okay. So anyways, all right, perfect. So CISD, sweepable, bam, we have that. Now here, there's really nothing except for a CISD to the upside here. So we'll skip the left side of that. But once we get here, we have high, low, high, giving us the sweepable. We sweep here, and then price goes lower. Let me hit the replay tool real quick so I don't have to zoom out so much. So here, he sweeps. He does create a breaker, giving us our first loss on that. And then price crashes down, takes the low, so the breaker gets erased. So there's no second trade on this leg as far as the 5-minute goes. Okay. Now on the 15-minute in the same area, high, low, high, low, high. This is the sweepable here on the 15-minute. Okay. So we sweep it, which we do here. We create the first bullet 1 up the 15-minute, which is here. It does not deliver. So once it digs down lower again, this becomes bullet 2. I wasn't on the charts for this. Obviously, this is London. So there was no way I could have been on the charts for this price action. But what's noteworthy is bullet 1 for the 5-minute failed on this play. The play gets erased. Bullet 1 fails on the 15-minute. It gets erased. But now we dig for bullet 2 of the 15-minute. And it's also the very first swing high. Sorry, high, low, high. For the first sweepable after this leg up. That's really what's important here. So this projection is good. I know the breaker is not good. Breaker has an inside candle right here because it's low. Let me draw this one because this is a funky one, so some people might not recognize it. So low, high, lower low, higher high. Okay. That's the way this prints. Or, it can be like this. Doesn't matter. But preferably like this. That's the way I would view this personally. So this does apply. This is a breaker. It is valid. It's just really ugly, and yeah, it is what it is. So once we have this in play, this breaker in play, we're following the projections of that breaker, and NFP is coming up. So let's go over the projections real quick, because the short. Well, there was people who were trying to short here. So I guess let's go over the short side real quick, just because I want to make sure people understand why I wouldn't have been shorting. So CISD to the downside here for the first time on the 5-minute. Low, high, low, giving us a sweepable here on the 5-minute. Okay. That's the first bullet. Then we have CISD here, giving us a sweepable here. That's also the first bullet. Okay. Then we have a CISD here, giving us this as the very first sweepable here. Okay. And then this CISD here is the same as this one. So 2 sweepables that were unswept. Sweepable here. There is a 1 minute breaker here that loses. So this is actually B2, the bullet number 2 on the short side. Okay. Now from this side here, this is a sweepable on the 5 minute and it's a sweepable on the 15. Okay, it's a sweepable on both time frames. So let's go to the left real quick. After that sweep happens, let's look at the short side. On the short side, there's nothing here to do. This is bullet 1 because bullet 1 goes across from here. Bullet 1 loses. We then sweep it again right here, right? We then sweep it right here. And there's your second breaker. So bullet 1, bullet 2, short side is done. Okay. Now, if you go on the 5 minute, of course, it makes the CIs to the downside. So it looks like it's reversing. It looks like it will drop. It's like, oh, that was bullet 1, bullet 2. Okay, great. I'm going to start shorting from here because maybe this is it. That is the thing that will get you caught up. So if you think, okay, great. Well, now I'm going to start doing this because, you know, it's doing X or Y. By the way, so here's high, low, high, low, high, low, high, and then it would be lower, low once we close below this here. Okay. So these are the projections for the top breaker. So you think, okay, well, it's going to reverse. It's not. All it's doing, it's retracing. Okay. 2 standard deviations to 2.5. What does that line up with? The 5 minute sweepable. That was the first on the leg from here. So when it's coming down and it looks like it's just going to fall off the bed, it's not. All it's doing is retracing. Continuations are 4, 4.5. Retracements are 2, 2.5. This finished the objective of 4, 4.5. So if this is going up, I wouldn't have taken a bullet here. Why? Because he hasn't reached 4, 4.5 from the projection. That's a continuation play. That means that if he hasn't reached continuation, why would it reach for retracement? It wouldn't. It would just keep going up until he reaches, and then he can retrace. So we go to 2, 2.5. He retraces back down to 2, 2.5 off the continuation breaker. And that 2, 2.5, what does it line up with? It lines up with the 2, 2.5 here, relatively the same area. But now it brings you to the actual sweepable that it needs to go to. Okay. So that's the context. That's why shorts were cooked. Somebody took a short like in candle 1 or something like that from a 5 minute play here, I think it was on the Discord. Yeah, right here. So CISD is here. Sweepable is there, the high. And then this would be the first CB. Okay. But the context was this is going to go up higher. I let them know ahead of time. So it was no surprise when they got taken out. But yeah, so that's the context around that. Now let's start looking to the upside. So after all of that was done, we have CISD here to the upside for the continuation play, right? So 5 minute sweepable, 5 minute breaker. So it does complete what we needed to. We then create a sweepable here, which is high, low, high, even as bullet 1. Got to check if there was a breaker there or not. Quick. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so that gives us bullet 1, which is here. A low, high, lower, low, higher, high. That goes to less than 2 standard deviations. No IFG, no BISI. It did close on the first time. The breaker is an inside candle. So this will be a B. I mean, the maximum potential is 2 standard deviations. He then gets swept again. So this is now bullet 2 once it goes below here. And remember, bullet 2 is the one that is most likely to hold. So then we have low, high, low, giving us our new breaker block if we close above that. And let's go ahead and mark that out, CISC. So low, high, low, giving us this breaker. There is this candle is an outside candle, so plus 1 point. No IFG, so -1. No BISI, -1. Didn't close on the first tab, but it didn't retrace further back than 25% once it actually tried to do it. So I would consider this B, maybe B plus, because it didn't retrace further back, but this is a valid trade, okay? And the context is, again, we're reaching for the standard deviations of this 15 minute and the 5 minute. So we still want to go up here at the very least to previous day high at the very least, because that would be 2 standard deviations from that 15 minute breaker. So yeah, that was a pre-NFP play that you could have gotten into. Obviously, don't trade NFP on cash or funded accounts, maybe on evals if you have a lot of money and you don't mind losing some extra. Like, yeah, you can do that. You can gamble it out. Well, I guess it's not a gamble if you knew the projections and stuff, but they definitely could obviously go down. So like you just got to make sure that you're aware that you can get slipped. All right, awesome. So yeah, so NFP boom goes up higher. I talked about it on stream how I was bullish and what I was looking for. And then we get high, low, high on the 5-minute here. And that's our sweepable. And that's the play that I unfortunately missed today because I got a little greedy on my fill. I wanted to get a heavy discount fill right around here. And unfortunately, that came and bit me in the butt. I should have done a 50% on this one. But anyways, this is the first breaker to the upside after the 5-minute gets swept. And that is literally what starts going up higher and higher and higher. It goes to 2.5 standard deviations. And then it reverses from there. And now it's here. It's not going to reverse and going to come all the way back down here. At least I don't believe so. It's probably just going to continue the projections for Monday. So when Monday opens, we'll either have a gap up that finishes the 4 standard deviations, or we'll have some sort of stale movement just sideways, and then it will finally finish it out. As far as the 5-minute goes and the 50-minute after this trade was gone, honestly, everything was pretty dookie. The very first breaker that comes out after the sweep is this one, right? This is the very first busy, which never gets tapped back into. This is the very first sweepable, which again, never gets tapped back into. So anything above the very first of its kind, it's where you're in that territory where it could go from here, but you have a very clear, liquidity pool right below that is the first of its kind. So it takes priority basically on the, process. This also is a 50-minute sweepable here. This is the very first swing low. So you have two things to worry about when you're buying anything above here. There is a CISD here. This is a 5-minute sweepable. There is also a CISD here because you have a high, low, higher high, lower low, higher high. And that gets confirmed here on this candle, which makes this a sweepable. It did get swept. And once it did get swept, we create the very first breaker here. That's bullet 1. And then we create the second bullet here once he sweeps it one more time. So the second bullet fails right here, right? When this low takes that bullet, which means that automatically you can now pivot onto shorts temporarily until it reaches a target, which in this case would be the 5-minute sweepable with the 5-minute busy. So either on Monday, we gap up, we finish this out, or we gap down, we come here, and then we continue up higher. One or the other. I mean, I just very highly doubt it's going to reverse. Now, there's a third bullet here if you were looking too long. I personally didn't want to be involved in this, so I just skipped the PM overall. These 2 bullets lost, and so the only thing I could have done was short, and I did look to take a short, but unfortunately for me, it didn't sweep right here. So CISD to the downside, a low, high, low, giving me the sweepable. Came real close, and then it didn't do it, and then it just dropped without me. So if this would have gotten swept, I would have taken that short for sure because I would have been able to get an easy short, knowing the fact that this side fell twice already. So, I had the advantage of pivoting until the higher time frame said otherwise, which was going to be here. But yeah, that's the review. A little bit longer. Wanted to break down everything. There wasn't really a lot, honestly, in the in-betweens. Like when the shots came, they were really good as long as you knew what you were doing. Like this shot was good. This shot was good. This shot was good. This shot was really good. This shot was good. I just got greedy with it. And yeah, those were pretty much the only ones. Other than that, like you would have gotten chopped up if you didn't know the correct draw. So I'm gonna make another video for the series soon. Maybe, I don't know, I'll call it how to know the right draw on liquidity or something like that. I'll figure out what catchy name I can put on YouTube. But yeah, it's something like that, explaining basically how to determine your bias for the day with some examples. That is a harder topic because there is some subjectivity in terms of like what I think will happen. I have a very specific process on how to determine bias for me that makes a lot of sense in my head. I just haven't sat down to put it in words or put it in a specific framework that can be analyzed like an ABC step-by-step type of system. A couple of my students are starting to understand it more, and they're getting how it works, and they're duplicating the same trades that I'm taking live without me even telling them to do it. It's working in that sense, but it's still difficult for me to explain it. The only reason why they understand it is because I live stream every day. They watch me every day. They ask me the questions. So then they actually see it and they're starting to get the gist of it by just watching a bunch of it. So watching me basically speeds up the learning process for them. So yeah, I don't know. I'll figure out a way to make it easy to understand. But honestly, like doing a 20-30 minute video on it, it's just not going to be enough time to really get the full idea out because there's so many. But if this, then that. And sometimes I make this decision, sometimes I make that other decision. And so, yeah. But, anyways, thank you for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what I can do better. Give me some feedback, please. And I'll see you guys Monday. Bye.